Okay.
Okay, dignity is a matter. I think dignity is a matter of self-respect and self-worth, self-acceptance. Uh, in order for one to have dignity, there has to be a matter of self-confidence. And one of the writers talks about self-actualization. But dignity, I think, is bound around all of those things.
Okay, good. Do you think that every being has a dignity?
I think that every person can have dignity. I think the problem is sometimes when they're brought up, or in the family, or in school, or the culture, and someone says to you, "You're no good. You're not worth anything." Then it's hard to have dignity. I think dignity is based in many ways on feeling self-awareness and being aware of oneself and being positive about that.
How do you deal with the fear of losing your dignity or your identity?
This is a tough question. I think that it is. I don't think that I fear losing my identity. What happened? I interviewed a young man once upon a time and asked him. I was asking him about his mortality, and I basically said, I was asking him, "Do you believe in immortality?" And he said he fears non-existence. And I think maybe you lose your identity when you die. I guess I really feel that generally I have an identity when I live. When my life ends, I no longer have an identity. However, for a while, when people remember you and you've like made ripples in the water, or a stone is thrown into the water, the ripples continue, even though the stone has gone down into the water. I think, in a sense, if one has identity, it's like ripples in the water, and it continues even after your death, because it is influencing somebody, or you're being remembered by somebody.
Okay. Yeah. We already discussed several times on the following matter of bringing your life to an end. When is it worth putting yourself the question of ending your life?
As you know, Beat, I worked with hospice for a dozen years, actually, and I think a lot of times I was working early on in the 90s when I was working with hospice. I was working with young men who were gay and had AIDS, and family was sometimes saying to them, "You're not our family. You're gay, and AIDS is the result of you being gay, and that's how God punishes you." I think for some people, some of those young men thought, I might as well end my life because I don't have anything, because my life is not worthwhile. I think if one begins to feel that the value of life no longer exists, then I suppose you begin to think about ending one's life. I think in the midst of illness or disease, life-threatening disease, and the realization that, as a matter of fact, the disease is going to kill you, then I think you can start. I think it's okay to think about ending one's life. To begin with, I should have prefaced this all by saying, I think I have a right to live, and I have a right to die. Some would say that's not true. You don't have a right to die. But I think with a sense of dignity, part of my perception is dignity with life and dignity with death. And I have the right to die. A lot of people would not agree to that, but I think I do. I think I have a right to die.
In your opinion, is it worth thinking of bringing your life to an end when your dignity is not assured anymore?
I don't know when that would happen. I'm not sure when is your dignity no longer assured? When people don't like you, or when you don't like yourself? Is that when dignity is no longer assured? I'm not sure how. I think as long as a person, no, let me say it this way. I think dignity is an attitude. And no one can take dignity away from me. It is assured if I accept it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right, okay.
Is there any lack of understanding concerning the matter of bringing your life to an end in your society?
Yeah, I think so, very much so. I think for many persons, I think first of all, if I wish to end my life, I think, regardless of what the laws say, I think it is not a legal issue. The law may say you can't end your life, you can't take your life. It's against the law to take your life. Oh my goodness! If I want to take my life, I have the right to take my life, and I don't think it's illegal. It may be in the law or in the papers as legal. I don't think it's a legal issue. Nor do I think it's a moral issue. I think there are a lot of religious people who would say, in our culture, who would say, taking your life is a sin. It's a moral issue. I don't think it's an ethical issue. Now I need to question, if I'm going to take my life, as to whether or not I have talked with my family and with my partner. If I suddenly, without explanation, end my life, I think that's got some questions of ethics about it. I think my family and my partner, my close friends, have a right to know how I feel about ending my life, and that they would not find it surprising if I do decide to end my life. Along with that, I don't think ending one's life is a mental health issue. I'm sure there are a lot of people who would say suicide is a mental. You're crazy. It's a mental health issue. I don't think necessarily. I think you think it through, and you're thoughtful about it, and your life is terminal because you have a life-threatening disease, and it's going to be painful at the end, very painful, and they don't have the drugs that can keep it from being painful. And I think it's all right to question and say, well, particularly in my case, Beat, I'm 85 years old. I've had a good life. I have a grandchild. I have adult children. I have good friends. If it comes to the place where where the disease is going to end my life, and maybe I've already gone through treatment programs and they're not working, then I think it's fine for me to say I'm going to end my life, and I don't think that's a mental health issue.
Yeah. Okay. How did you manage to discuss this matter with somebody?
Well, I was careful about that. I think because it is a difficult issue for people to understand, you simply can't throw it into the mix and say, "Oh, by the way, Bob, I'm going to end my life sometime." It's not like that. I think it's more of a matter of I have 2 or 3 people, like you for instance, that I can talk with and say, I have no moral or ethical issue with with ending my life. I choose to be confidential and personal with 1 or 2 or 3 people, and that's it. Because and those people are people I think will understand, have already understood, and kind of accept that that's where I am. So that's how I handle that. Now I'm doing this publicly now, which is that's okay. I don't mind. We'll see whether or not if you or I get any feedback on that. I will be very interested in what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now knowing that your answers will be heard and discussed by an audience, interested audience, are there any suggestions or questions you would want to?
Yeah, I think I think you, all of you who are listening to this, need to ask the question of what are the barriers in your culture to identify to self-worth and to self-respect. What are the barriers to self-confidence? What keeps a person from, when it comes to issues around dying, what keeps a person from death with dignity? I think I'm a gay man, and someplace along the line I said being out and being clear about being gay is life with dignity. And I think for me, being clear about terminal illness and how I want my life to end, and having a will written in such a way that my family knows that there are certain kinds of things I don't want. Like I don't want a feeding tube and that kind of thing. And they know that. Well, then I think you in your culture need to understand what keeps a person from being honest about that. What are the barriers?
Okay. Well, yeah. I thank you very much for this.
Okay, you're welcome. And now this is the end of the interview, but if this is not helpful, we need to do it again.
Okay.
All right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hang on just a minute. Keo? Come down.
I just stopped the
Yeah, we gotta
recording.
stop.
It's okay.
Yeah, we gotta stop it. Hang on. Turn it off.
Okay.